Good afternoon, and this is Kathy Kress, and I am glad to have you on my latest webinar, Learn to Sell Benefits, Not Features, to Third Parties to Grow Your Care Management Bottom Line, which means money. And just a few housekeeping things. Can you please write down your questions or jot them on your phone because we'll have 15 minutes of questions. And I want you to be able to ask them and, ask Keith. Keith Manensky is here too. We're both going to be answering. And there's a lot of links in here. So when you do get this. You will get this at the end of probably tomorrow. You'll get the whole thing and we will send it to you, and there are many, many links in here. So you will get it in your own personal email. So let's kind of launch into it. Steps to make this happen. What do I want to make happen? What I want to make happen is for you to understand benefits and features, but in the larger sense, marketing, and in the largest sense, profit in your business, and in the largest of all, money. And so I am trying to teach you how to make more money by learning to market, by learning an important part of marketing, which is benefits and features. And we're going to launch into that. So I always start with a fake news has been around for a long time. I don't believe there's fake news. However, this is a fake client and that I have worked with, and it's a compilation of a lot of people. She had a public service background. Let's say she worked for Adult Protective Services in Philadelphia. So it was a public job, but she was the care manager, but she was untrained in marketing and terrified, very scared of marketing in general. She had no idea how to make one-to-one presentations. She would just wanted to start a business, and she didn't know how to sell benefits and features, didn't even know the difference between them, which is understandable. But she was still having meetings with third parties, but was getting very few referrals. So her business didn't grow. And what I did, and I do with everyone, is I taught her how to sell one-to-one to third parties, which is really important because a lot of your business comes from third parties. And I worked with her on how to overcome ethical dilemmas in sales, and we'll talk about that, how to reach these third parties, how to structure a sales pitch. You just don't go in and, just let it all hang out. You have to have a structured sales pitch to any one particular third party. It needs to be planned, and what to bring to the meeting, because, lots of people don't even know that. And most important, how to sell benefits at that meeting, not features. So she had an ethical dilemma, and most of us do. I am a social worker myself. As all RNs and social worker people in healthcare do, about sales and marketing. Because you have a business and you must serve the top 10% economically to make a profit, because they're the only people long-term who can afford you. Not because geriatric care management is that expensive, because over a long period of time, somebody's going to run into home health care, which is very expensive. And the only people that can afford care management and home care are really in the top 10%. So you've got to serve these people. And most of us are trained to give our services away because we worked in healthcare, in a hospital. You served everybody. In, Philadelphia's Adult Protective Services, you served everybody. And here you have a business, and the actually only 3% of the Aging Life members have a background in business. So it's all of us that have this. And out of this comes an ethical dilemma. And that means that two ethical standards apply to a situation, but they're in conflict with each other. And so all the care managers in healthcare are trained to give their services away, and especially if they're women, they're hardwired to do it. Or you've heard me say this before, if you've heard me, the babies would go out the window when they cried all night. But we are trained, we are hardwired to nurture as women. And so here you are having to sell to only 10% of the, leave the 90% alone, and that's an ethical dilemma. But again, we've been trained as these social workers and nurses. You can see them. But out of this, out of our ethical dilemma, we still run the business, but we don't bill for our services. We don't bill for all of them because we feel guilty. We think sometimes, oh, I've driven so many miles, that's not fair to do, and we don't bill for the mileage. We think the older person's going to run out of money to pay us, and therefore we don't bill for the service. And almost everybody, whether you are willing to admit this or not, has done this at one period of time. And so you need 85% of your billable hours to be billed in order to be successful in geriatric care management. I've done many lectures on this. And so what you're doing is endangering the very business that you started by doing that. Because your care management agency is a business. This is what you chose to go into. And the health of a business is really measured in profit, how much money comes in. That's the lifeblood of a business. So you've got to serve this top 10% of elders who can afford aging life care and home care as they age. So to be a healthy business, you've got to use sales, you've got to sell to third parties, and you have to use benefits, not features. And that's what we're all about here. I'm going to run through this really fast. Why can I do this? I am the author, along with a zillion other people who wrote chapters in here, of the Handbook of Geriatric Care Management, which is out in the fourth edition. I'm an expert GCM lecturer and teacher. I've taught at Berkeley, San Francisco State, the University of Florida, et cetera, et cetera. And I have a new online class that I'm going to talk about in geriatric care management. I'm an expert in the aging family because, as you may have heard me say, aging is not about an older person. Aging is about the whole family. You've got to have a whole family approach because the family has to organize the care. And many times they don't do it, they won't do it, they refuse to do it. And so that's what you need to know about whole families. I'm an expert in the operations manuals. I wrote the first one and the only one in the field, and that's been out since 2012, and you can find out about that at the bottom. Here is my co-presenter, the very handsome Keith Manensky, who will answer questions, and you might hear him yell, "Kathy, stop." He's a graduate level instructor in geriatric care management at the University of Florida. In fact, we taught together. He's an active member in the Florida Aging Life Association and the National Aging Life Association at Care, and National Council of Certified Dementia Practitioners and National Academy of Certified Care Managers. So he is as expert as I am to answer these questions. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover how to reach third parties. That's really important. And we're going to go over how to create a sales pitch for third parties, what to bring to a sales meeting, and how to sell benefits and not features. So what's a third party? These are called targets. It's a target market, and they're trust departments, or AKA wealth managers, as they call them now, Elderlaw attorneys, Upscale assisted living, concierge physicians, and hospice. And these are like the 5 main ones, but there's many more, and these are the ones we're going to go over. So many of us, as I said before, are sales phobic. And I want you to reframe a sales meeting and think of this as a relationship building meeting. And you know how to do that. Because what do you do if you're a nurse? You build a relationship with the person that you are, helping, and the patient. And if you're a social worker, same thing. You build a relationship before you really start working with them. This is what you're doing in this meeting, building a relationship with this third party. It's really what it is. And so you want to schedule the meeting in your marketing contact database. And if you don't know what that is or don't have one, that is a customer relationship. It even says it here, marketing database. And you should have one. And if you don't have one, you need to look into this. Salesforce is an example of that, but that's too big. It's best if you schedule this meeting face to face, because obviously, how do you get to know somebody face to face? But sometimes you might have to do it, via conference. And face to face gives you credibility. So, what's relationship building? So, first of all, to work in these sales meetings, to do a good job, you have to know what GCM product your third party is interested in. What do I mean by this? I mean, you always think of services for geriatric care managers. They're products. They're products that people not only want to buy, but they feel is going to make a difference to them. So you have to have a menu of services or products, and I strongly recommend that. And so you want to take this wonderful, wonderful face-to-face opportunity to focus on the products the third party wants. An elder law attorney wants conservatorship or guardianship. They do that, but out of that, they want your geriatric assessment to be written to go to court as evidence. And that's why you're valuable to them, and that's the product that you talk about, because it can do that. And that's what I mean by products. And you use sell sheets that I'm going to talk about a little bit from here. And then you bring a marketing packet. And, I'm sure most of you do this, but it has to be made of the following items. It's a brochure from your agency. And as you well know, the web is your brochure as well, even more effective. But put that in there. And, I know the press is not as vibrant as it used to be, which sadly is true. But, get your local paper to do a story about you opening your agency, a new person you brought on, a certain great solution you had for a client, and put that in. It gives you credibility. Put that in there. Your business card, of course, but then a sell sheet on the product. Like the elder law attorney will want you to do a written geriatric assessment, have the sell sheet in there. It's a one pager. And this is a sell sheet. It's just an example of it. It's a program that I've been working on. This is a quality of life program, that product that an agency is using, and you can see they've named it well-being. But on the top, you can see these are features. Exactly the features that this program has. And beyond that are benefits. How will your clients be better out of this program? And that's how you want to structure the sell sheet, and really the way you sell everything. So what are features? Features matter. Why do they matter? Because they show your customers hints about how well your product or service will deliver its benefits. And why should they choose it? And look down here on the right. This is an iPhone or some kind of phone. So the feature is it has 16G of MP3.5 storage. Most people don't even know what that is. But on the other side, it has the benefits: 1,000 songs in your pocket. And that's what I mean by features and benefits. So benefits are more important than features, but there's sometimes when features really do make a difference. So let's go over them with GCM, or Geriatric Care Management, or ALCA. Products that your competition doesn't have, you really have to talk about that. And, because it's really important that you show them that you have a different, and better, a greater range of products than your competition. And so if you have written geriatric assessments and nobody else does in your area, you need to be able to say that. Price is really important, so you want to talk about the price. Communication is everything, so that you communicate on a regular basis with that third party. If it's the elder law attorney, they want to know how the client is doing. They don't want to do the health care. They want you to do it, but they want to know what's happening with that. So monthly reports is something I really believe in, but faxes, they're old. Email, text is whatever, that you're going to keep in touch. care managed home care. That's a great feature for a geriatric care management agency to have, because they know that in one seamless agency they're going to get both, and they really appreciate that. Level of education is one of the top ones. So, you have care managers who all have masters, who, whatever their expertise is, you want to talk about that. And this is a really important one: free consultation, complimentary consultation. If you go on Sage Elder Care, Nina Herndon's website out here in California, she does free consultation. It's a 30-minute consultation where you can get them to, just put their foot in the water, find out about it, and you can make the sale over the phone. So everybody likes something for free. And positioning, and that's what you're doing, when you're talking about what services you have, so no one else has. You want to position your agency so it stands out from your competitors. You should have done a competition survey before that, and in my book, Handbook of Geriatric Care Management, you can find out how to do that. But you want to talk about how your unique business model and concierge service, because you're serving the top 10%, differ from your competitions. You want to talk about that in the meeting. And you want to talk about your range of services or products, because you want to have a full menu. And you want to talk about price. I talked about that. And communication is everything. You want to keep in the third party wants to hire you because you do something they don't do, but they still want you to report to them. And that's the important part. And then years in business, the well-being program I worked with is with an agency that's been around for 35 years. That speaks volumes about the trustworthiness of an agency. And a free 30-minute consultation I just talked about. So that's, about positioning. So what is a care management product? So I'm going to talk a lot about product. We all, in social services talk about services, but services are really products. And a product is understandable to a customer or a client, especially the top 10%. Look down at all these chi-chi purses and high heels down there. That's a 10% ad. And I really, I encourage you not to use abstract peace of mind with adult children trust officers and elder law attorneys. That you use specifically products. If someone's mother is going in the hospital, have a product called Home from the Hospital. If a person has a mother that moved into assisted living and she hates it and she's going to move out, have something called Concierge Companion. And it's true of all of us. I basically go down the drugstore aisle to find shampoo that doesn't have things that are going to make my hair dry and awful, and I pick out the product that doesn't have it. So you also, you do the same thing, and a lot of you shop on Amazon or at a store. So we all like products, and especially the top 10% is very used to buying products, because for them, in many ways, it's status. I bought $120 shoes, or I have a daughter that bought $900 shoes. I can't, remember the brand, but it was like, oh my God. But that's status. Benefits. Okay, so a feature, this is what it is. A feature is a factual statement about a product or a service being promoted. Features aren't what entice customers to buy. That's where benefits come in. Benefits answer the question, what's in it for me, the buyer? And with a shampoo, what's in it for me? My hair doesn't look ratty. That's the benefit. And basically, for an elder law attorney, I don't know anything about healthcare, but I know a lot about law. Let's bring this other person in. They can do that, and I won't have to pay for it. That's what's in it for them. And so a feature provides the customer with something of value to it. And just look at the umbrellas down here. It's an easy way to look at it. So all the features of the umbrella is, it's got this little button at the bottom, makes it open. instantly it's made of cloth. But, who cares about that? The benefit is you don't want to get wet. And if you have the button, it opens really fast so you get less wet when you're opening it. So that's really an easy way to say what features and benefits are and why you should sell benefits. So a benefit is a competitive advantage when it gets the attention of the prospect, when they perk up and start listening to you because you have something they want. And it sells the product or service itself. So you keep customers coming back because, they usually give you the nasty case first. And then after that, if that you prove yourself by solving that, dilemma, then, they'll keep on sending you cases. And it causes prospects to talk about your product to other potential buyers. So, an assisted living director, if you really do a great job, is going to refer a lot of the move-in clients to you because she knows they'll stay through the services you have. And you don't like to hear this because we're social workers and nurses, it buries the competition. And unfortunately, you have a business, so you've got to act that way. Third, now I'm going to go through some of the third parties that how benefits will bring them to you. So let's talk about elder law attorneys. They're a big one, and the way you reach them is you go to the NALA websites, the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, and the link is right there. You can click on it, and you can add them to your CRM database. You know what that is now. And so, what it tells you when you go into the ALCA website, you just put the zip code in where you live, and it comes up with a whole list of your local elder law attorneys. So you add them to your database, and then, you add the other contacts, and that's how you find attorneys to start marketing to. And then contacting and meeting them. This is true for everybody. You want to send a form letter out first through your CRM database, and that's one of the benefits of having a CRM database is that it will send to a whole group of people like elder law attorneys the same letter. However, it'll be personally addressed. It's just one of the wonderful features of that. And then you make a call after the letter and ask to meet the elder law attorney. And then, you have the meeting that we're talking about. You discuss the benefits. What do you do after the meeting? You update this elder law attorney database in your CRM database, but you have to keep sending them information, and that's called touches. In marketing, you want to have 7 touches to really get a client. So, you send them, any kind of, marketing article about elder law issues. Obviously you take it off the web or you send them a newsletter. And Tasha Bouchamp, who's one of the great people that is a partner in ALCA, will do a newsletter for you and has a whole library of these. So if you can't do all that and don't have the time to do it, look into Tasha. But what are the actual benefits that you're going to use in this meeting with an elder law attorney? You can assess capacity. They can't. That's critical with older people. And you're a health professional and they're not. And they know that and they're going to pay attention to you then. You can work with dysfunctional families. They hate them. I once went to an elder law attorney when I still had a business, and I started talking about care management. He said, "Oh my God, I just had the family in and I had to call the sheriff," because they started fighting and they were yelling so much. They hate the dysfunctional families, but that's their bread and butter. So you can basically handle dysfunctional families, or you should be able to do it, because you can facilitate a dysfunctional family meetings. And if it's too tough for you, and it may be, you know how to pass it on to a mediator. And in my book, Handbook of Geriatric Care Management, the last chapter is when to give a dysfunctional family to a mediator. But you can facilitate family meetings over non-titled assets, because lots of times at the end of life, families will fight tooth and nail and spend a fortune over, stupid well, things that mean a lot to them, like the salt and pepper collection in mom's kitchen that showed she loved them all. And you can deal with that, but when it comes to title property, the attorney's going to take over. But healthcare decisions, you can do all this, and he or she can't. You're an expert in sibling wars, and siblings are the one thing that drive us all crazy in the elder care field, because if they feel that the parent didn't love them enough, they will sabotage care, they go after each other, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you know how to work with siblings. That's another benefit. And you can advise in current and future costs of care. That's a real benefit. Most importantly, you're an extra set of eyes to the attorney, and because you monitor on a regular basis and will communicate. So there are great benefits for an elder law attorney. Let's turn to concierge physicians. You serve the same upper 10%. You do actually with the elder law attorney as well. And that's a benefit to them because you understand, you have the same clientele. And you do the same one-to-one excellent, gold standard care. But you're not a doctor. However, you will keep track of all the appointments as a care manager and make sure they get to the appointment and don't miss it. And that's a real benefit to the concierge physician. You know the questions to ask the doctor ahead of time because you've been monitoring all along. And so you can organize those questions, sort of sit down with your client and work with them to use the time in a really good way to get those questions out. And you can even send them ahead of time to the nurse. And so that the doctor is really prepared to, deal with questions right away before the appointment, and that's a benefit. And you make home visits weekly. They make them as well, but you're an extra set of eyes and ears that, works with a family, does a lot of other things that they don't do. So they have a self-made team through you, and they don't even have to pay you. So they're real benefits. Let's look at the assisted living. The product that I would use with them is called Concierge Companion. These are all in my manual. And assisted living and retirement communities have clients with needs way beyond their non-medical, non-one-to-one living arrangements, and that frequently happens. So you can help the facility. This is a benefit because you can specifically engage new residents who move in and are not happy. And most people that move there, I mean, they feel like they're on Mars. They don't know anybody, the hallway, they never had a hallway through, they didn't live in a hotel, all those things. And so you can use your concierge companion to engage in socialization, to help the older person engage in socialization and the activity program there, to make friends. That's really important, so they'll want to stay, and engage them in outside activities through quality of life assessments, finding out, what did they love? They loved music. They liked the outdoors. They could go to parks. And you can place a concierge companion with them. And the benefits are when you place that concierge companion, he or she's going to engage the client and accompany them to the outside facilities so that they can get started, so that the resident can return to joy and want to stay in the facility, and the facility won't lose money. That's the basic benefit to them. You make monitoring visits to make sure the concierge companion's doing their job, and you also communicate on a regular basis when you go with the facility, so you touch base, and you give them communication again, frequent updates, email, telephone, monthly report, and so that's the benefit. And the ultimate benefit is they keep their residents, and you will help them do it and make a joyful experience for the residents that are there, make them better than another facility. The next is hospice. And, most people don't think about this, but hospice is a great, great third party for care managers. And I've developed a product called End of Life. And what are the benefits? You can bring the client to hospice much earlier than when the average client in hospice gets there the last 30 days because they're so afraid that this is the end. But really, they can come in any of the 5 stages of death. And there are 5 stages. And if you read Care Managers Working with the Aging Family, there's a whole great chapter by a hospice geriatric care manager that I actually taught in San Francisco State in the Masters. And because you can see, because you can come in and out of hospice now, when, hospice should take over the meds and then stabilize them, and then they can go back out of hospice, and eventually they're going to stay. You can also do something that I developed that's in the new product, End of Life, called a quality of death assessment, which I think is really critical. What are the elders' wishes about a good death? Do they want all their family there? Do they want some of their family left out? Do they want religious music played? Do they want Bob Dylan played? Do they want, what do they want? We don't think about a good death, but there is a good death. And so, to ask them ahead of time, what kind of death do you want? I mean, this isn't the death rattle, but there is a process to dying, and the family usually gathers around. So you can do that and plan ahead for it in the earlier stages of death. And you can also, make sure all the critical paperwork is there for hospice. And there's a ton of it, and the family's overwhelmed by the death. And so the legal, financial, healthcare, and end of life documentation is there, and you can make a good death for this person and their family. And you can bring people into hospice earlier, which is great for hospice, but really ultimately great for the client. So care managers are wonderful, and the benefits are you monitor your client and the care receiver's family caregivers. Hospice is attuned to the client, or the older person. They're not, they don't take care of the caregiver's family, and you do. So you can manage those crazed siblings, or the you know the odd cousin who shows up and's got to be there and can't keep his mouth shut. You manage the caregivers if they're in there, because a hospice doesn't do that either. So you can, in a cast of millions that show up, when people die, you can make a smooth, operation between the hospice people and the family and the caregivers. And you can accompany the client to medical appointments, make sure they're, that if you're in a straight doctor, then you only have 10 minutes. And so you can make sure that the right questions are asked and all the meds are picked up, and they follow up and take those meds. The last one is a trust officer, wealth manager. We are becoming a nation, or we've already become, where the top 3% of the top 1% control more money than the lower 90%. So there's a lot of wealthy people, and wealth managers handle that through trusts and banks. So what's important to a trust officer about you? Well, first of all, they run the money. They don't do anything else. So you are an advocate for healthcare, and healthcare, so you can monitor the health care of the older person and their social status, and report that to the trust officer, so he knows that his client is getting the best, health care, and you intervene if there's a crisis. You will do the communication I've been talking about: emails, reports, updates, because these are very wealthy people, and not that poor people don't demand, the best of care, but these people really demand the best of care, and the trust officer wants to give it. The benefit is you will keep care in the preventative care rather than crisis. There's going to be some crises, but your job as a geriatric care manager is to keep preventative care, to see things ahead of time and head them off. You can manage you can manage mental health problems, with lots of older people have. You can see this in our present government. You can manage adult siblings, I already talked about them, who disrupt the older client's care through their sibling fights over and over again, especially, moneyed people. If mom didn't love you enough, which a lot of very wealthy older people never paid attention to their kids, they'll fight over the money, and they'll go tooth and nail. So the trust officer doesn't want to do it. He loves you doing it. That's what's the benefit. You manage this dysfunctional families, just like we talked about, and you can facilitate family meetings to come to an agreement, to get the right care for the older person. So that's a giant benefit for them. Oh, I think I skipped one more. Let's see. After the sales meeting, enter all your data in the CRM database and then write a handwritten thank you note to the third party. Please, you don't get an email anymore. That means a lot. Building rapport is a natural outgrowth of these face-to-face meetings, and it will continue. The rapport will continue if you continue with these touches I've been talking about. Follow up, send them emails, send them articles, put them in your newsletter so that they'll refer more to you. So we've gotten to the end. I always make offers at the end of these webinars, and this is the first offer. So today I am going to explain this in terms of features and benefits, which I think you understand now, I hope. Okay, so what is my GCM operation manual that I'm making as an offer? The benefits of it is you can start your own new aging life or geriatric care management business with pre-made care management products, some of which I've just talked about, and the ability to train your staff in these products, the delivery of them, that's what is in the manual. Not only train them, but I mean, these products are offered in Four Seasons Gold Standard Care. So I make the products deal with that. You can effortlessly onboard or train new employees through an operations manual. Operations manuals are used all over the business world as training, so that rather than just make up how to do things each time somebody walks in, you have it all written down. And it makes it easy to open a second agency, because what are you doing if you're opening a second agency? You're taking the operations in your first and replicating them in your second, but you've written it all down in your operations manual. So it makes it really easy to expand. And then it offers risk management and with tried and true procedures to deliver, this is important, flawless care to somebody's mother, because they will sue you and you want to avoid these legal disputes. So you want to make sure that the training and the product is gold standard. So the features of the manual are, there's 14 services and products, and you just click on this link to find out what they are. There's a whole separate forms manual that goes with the manual, and it's 54 integrated forms that are specific to the products. There's some that are ubiquitous, like a geriatric assessment, a deep, depression scale, et cetera, et cetera. But most are very specific to the product. It's electronic or a PDF, so that you can take this and edit it any way you want. It becomes your own. So you can, scratch out products, you can add different steps to products, but you make it your own. And that's easy to do. And the offer is, and for the webinar, it's normally $8.99 and it could be $7.99. The contract, what you have to do is sign a contract before that, because it's my intellectual property. And you can just email me at my address, which is here. And then if you want to buy it, you could buy it through there. And the second is the online class that I've been talking about. There have been people over the 10 years that I've done this that have just gotten the manual. And there's other people that wanted to be taught the manual step by step by me, and tons did. So I just took all the training and I put it in an online class, because lots of people really needed to do it at their own pace, not on a class schedule. So this is offered in Blackboard, just like all online classes are, and I teach it. And the features, we're into features now. It's a self-paced schedule, so you can start it or stop it at any time. There's 20 PowerPoints with audio from me teaching you what I've been teaching people for the last 10 years about. I teach each product, how to deliver it, who delivers it, how you do the trade-off, etc. And then there's a marketing PowerPoint with each module. So you not only know how to deliver this, train your staff, but you can market it, just like I'm teaching you marketing now. And then there's 20 lecture videos with each, and there's more than 14, because there's only 14 products, because Death and Dying has 5 parts, so there's 5 of those, and Home from the Hospital has 3, because they're much more complicated. You're in a closed Facebook group with all the people that have ever bought the manual and the new people so that you can interact with them. There's, obviously a full bibliography, and CUs are in progress through the Association of Social Welfare Boards. And when they're approved, you'll get that. And the benefits, now we're at the benefits. You receive the operations manual, the forms manual. I have a person who just does technical support, who just graduated from Berkeley 4 years ago and works in Silicon Valley. So you don't have to worry about not understanding Blackboard or anything else. Um, you get marketing along with each product, and you make your agency more scalable so that you can grow the second agency. I already talked about that. You save money and time because your care management staff can have the manual for a reference after you've trained them. And if you're ill or sick, say you're out for 3 months, somebody can take over for you because your job's in there too. And, if there's a hurricane or just like the tornado and you need another agency that's states away to manage for you, you can email them the manual. Well, basically your business is flattened. And you can sell it for double your price because, having an operations manual makes your business a turnaround product. And you can just Google that and find out about it. And the offer for attending is $8.95 instead of $9.95, but you can also do it in 3 months or 2 months. And again, there's a signed product and signed contract because you're licensing my intellectual property, and you can email me and then I'll take care of everything for you. And especially if you want the payment plan, we can't do it any other way. So the last thing I'm going to say is the next webinar will be on May 16th with Keith and I, and it's going to be on the step that I missed here, which is how to close the sale. So the whole thing will be on how do you get them to sign the contract and give you the money as a deposit and start as a client and make more money. And now we'll go into questions.
Well, thank you, Kathy, for that great introduction for me.
Oh, it's your handsome picture there.
Okay. Well, I don't see any questions currently, and want to make sure that the folks understand that you can type your question in. And I don't know what it looks like on your end, so I apologize. I imagine there's a questions box there somewhere where they can type their question in, and I'll see it here, and I could read it to you, or you could read it.
Yeah, there is. There is. Come on, everybody. You can't not have questions.
Well, I do. Funny, okay. You should ask that because I do. In terms of marketing, now this is third party. It would in terms of marketing for the GCM. Everybody's a GCM to me because I'm old school and
me too.
Yeah, so really it's a GCM. School. So in terms of that, would you market yourself? Now, this is a decision the GCM has to make or their business has to make as a business decision as to go 24/7. Would you include that in your marketing to these third parties and say, yes, I can be available, regardless of what, or no, I can't be available?
That's a great feature to add okay. That would be a feature that I should have put that in. Thank you, Keith. Because, most of these third parties, I mean, the trust officer doesn't want to get up in the middle of the night and take care of the older person's cat. It's a perfect example. The lawyer certainly doesn't, and you're available on a 24-hour basis. So that's a great feature. Thank you.
So you would definitely, if that was your decision as a GCM starting out or changing, maybe you've been doing it for a couple of years and say, hey, I want to go, or I want to stop 24/7 coverage on my client. I'm not up to it anymore. Would you include that in as a feature to your?
Absolutely. Okay. I would list that. Absolutely, I would list it.
We have a couple of questions here now.
Come on. Good.
Okay. Nadine asks, what is the difference between the webinar and the class? Is it a similar price?
Well, the webinar I just did, so that, I'm not selling that. The webinars are always for free. Did you mean the manual in the class? Maybe she could answer that.
Yeah. That's all. That's all was written there in the.
Okay, so the manual is, an operations manual that has 14 products that you can market to, and instead of your services, or, most people go in and say, oh, we do an assessment. Nobody knows what an assessment is. It's on everybody's website. You
Yeah.
have to have products. So there's 14 products, like Home from the Hospital, Concierge Companion, Death and Dying, that are already together. They're already, basically put together. The marketing is there, how to do it, how to deliver it step by step, and each person in your agency delivers it. And so that's the manual. You can, if you want, email me and I can send you the table of contents to it so you see it. The
She.
online class is the manual. I'm sorry. I made myself know that when I needed to stop. The online class is the manual plus me teaching you the manual, how to deliver it. And I used to take a whole year to do that, but most of the time people got too busy and they had to stop. So it's basically me going through, exactly how to deliver it, and then you can answer questions from me. There's homework involved in it. There's marketing involved in it. There's marketing modules. So instead of just getting the manual and trying to figure it out, it's basically, for actually only $100 more, learning, having a whole online class on how to deliver this manual. And that's the difference.
Nadine responded back and said the 799 webinar you had mentioned, and then the class was 895.
Right. Because the manual is just the manual. The class is essentially a whole year's, condensed into an online class of teaching you how to use the manual.
Yeah. Okay.
Plus, I mean, there's a lot of intricacies to the manual. I mean, it's not if you're, pretty seasoned, you can use it and make it your own. So it's your choice whether you want to bother, taking a class at your own leisure and learning how to deliver this, and being able to ask questions, and being in a focus group, and an online group, to share information back and forth between people who have bought the manual. So, it offers you what you get, for instance, at the University of Florida with Keith being your teacher, or San Francisco State when I taught there.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, she said thank you. I guess that answered her
okay.
question. Amy Joe is asking, is there an advantage to opening a second agency versus having one agency with multiple offices or areas?
Well, there's two ways to do that. Right now, I'm consulting with big agency in Washington that's going to do the multiple agencies. Um, you know, um, it's hard to say. I mean, I think it takes a great big agency like Senior Bridge did that, but they had a
Yeah.
lot of money to be able to do that. And, they essentially set up these, multiple agencies all over the country. But you have to find a care manager for each one. So you have to have a care manager in the middle of the country if you're in New York, and that could be, difficult. Um, but you have a further reach, because you have care managers all over the place, as opposed to just one, opening one agency. One agency, you always call your first agency your beta program. And of course that comes from high tech. So you're testing everything out in your beta program, which is your first agency. And your second agency is really another testing ground. And then, what I would probably do is then start to go because you'll have more money with two agencies. Um, so I wouldn't say it's apples and oranges. I would say it depends upon your net worth, because basically if you have a care manager, all over the place. You have to find a care manager all over the place. Um, and I would say that it's more expensive to do it that way. But I mean, a lot of people have bought manuals from me because they want to, they want to use them all over the place. And I mean, manuals really came, believe it or not, or maybe you know this, from McDonald's. Just go see that movie. And the guy that started the guy that bought from the McDonald's brothers realized that the way they had the best hamburgers, and what he did was he wrote a manual and was able, and McDonald's still has, it's the king of manuals. It's called How to Fry the Hamburger. And they have their manual is used in every single place in the United States, or where, all over the world. All franchises use manuals. So manuals are pretty standard to be able to expand.
Okay. Casey asks, in your years as a GCM, how often do you get called overnight, or calls during the night as well? I think probably. Um,
Um, Not often. I think care managers, if somebody's going in the hospital, I mean, first of all, I mean, hopefully we all know this. If somebody calls, you want to tell them to call 911 first. If it's, you have to be able to, and in the manual, I already have that. What is just a routine call? What is a crisis? So you have to be able to judge that. And then the second thing is, if it's a crisis and it's a medical crisis, you want them to call 911 first and the doctor. If it's just a minor medical thing, you want them to call the doctor. But if it's a crisis, you might want to go out, but really you don't want to take the liability, and you shouldn't. So, want them to call the doctor first, and not very often. I mean, it may be when somebody's going to the hospital and you want to go out and check that everything's going well at the hospital. But I would say it's not that frequent at all. I mean, the first line of defense is call the doctor always.
True. But you're still going to get right. You tell them that, but what happens is they still call you.
Well, they
Yeah,
still will call you, and you want them to call you because you want to know what's
right.
happening, but you don't necessarily need to get out of bed to can't handle it. That's what I'm
That's true.
saying.
That's
And there's
that's
a
true.
whole section of the manual that covers on call, and and differentiates between this and explains what to do on call. So that's a real important part of running an agency, knowing those answers.
And I would say too that knowing the acuity of your individual clients that you're working with, you'll know
Oh,
when somebody's about to call you in, and you'll get a sense of something's wrong or something's going on. If you get to know your
yeah,
clients, you'll know when they're going to call you. You'll know when something's up. So you'll be prepared for that. You will get an
absolutely.
occasional call during the night from a family member, maybe not overnight, because they usually respect your privacy and things. Usually they do, I think. It's usually only an emergency. I haven't, in my experience, got calls just for the sake of it. A few, but generally it's for a reason, and a good reason. I'd rather be called. This is me talking. Sorry, Kathy, to take away your
Oh
your.
no, you're my co-presenter.
I would rather be called in the middle of the night and find out what's going on than to wake up the next morning and not know.
Right,
Uh,
exactly. And every care manager has to have that point of view
yeah,
because, you have to see the larger picture and all the details, and you only see the whole thing through the details.
yeah. Okay, let's go to our next question here. A copy of the webinar just attended, yes, that will be available tomorrow or the next day on Kathy's website. Kathy, you want to tell them what that is?
Yeah, it'll be on my YouTube channel, and I'll send that out to you, Geriatric Care 1, because, for various technical reasons, it has to go on there. And then it'll be on my website, and it will come directly to you in your email. So,
Oh,
and it'll stay on the YouTube site for about maybe 30 days or 60 days. So you have, lots of opportunities to see it.
Good. So we're getting a healthy dose of Kathy Crest then in the next couple of
I
days in our
tend to
email.
talk really fast, and I realize
You
that.
do.
First of all, I'm from New Jersey, so I'm an East Coaster, as my husband says. Second of all, I have so much material to get through that I have to really, move. So you can, maybe you can slow me down.
I don't think so. Okay, let's go to the next question from Jennifer. She's asking, does the online manual include a PDF for agency forms?
The forms are in a different manual because there's so many forms. So you get a second manual that has all the forms, and they're integrated, but they're in a second manual. So you have both.
Are they
There's 50.
what? How do they arrive to them?
That
In
you'll
Word,
get both of
PDF.
them in electronic and PDF, which you can edit. I'll show you how to edit it, and then in the regular operations manual, it refers to the form that you're supposed to be using. So,
Hmm.
exactly, when you're supposed to do a move management assessment, what form you're supposed to use, and you can print them out, obviously, if but hopefully just, put them on your computer and then you can, just download them. But I mean, they're integrated. You know exactly which form to
Okay.
use at what point. And there's a lot of forms because there's a lot of products that really are not usually available to care managers like Concierge Companion,
Yeah.
Death and Dying, which again I really stress. You can do a great service to dying people by using this and to hospice, and it's a great new area.
To that point, and then we're going to get on to Catherine's question here. But to that point, I also marketed funeral homes
Yeah,
because of the reason that you have here in Florida now, you have people who a husband and wife typically live here, or a couple live here, and one passes, and the other one is left pretty much on their
exactly.
own with a big house and a lot of property, and not knowing really where to turn. The family comes down for the funeral and for all the arrangements. 2 weeks later, they're all back to their jobs again and back to their own lives. So, so that's really where, in my opinion, that's really where a care manager can be very helpful. Hospice will call them once or twice a month to see how they're doing. There's support groups available to them to see how they're doing. But the GCM, I think, is really important in that stage and that transition for that person
I
when the
think that
family.
is exactly true. And it's, there are a number of third parties that I could have included, but I only had so much time. And funeral homes are, another third party that you should market to.
Okay, Catherine asked, would you recommend marketing all aspects of care management or focus on those areas where you and your staff have the expertise? That's a good question.
Um, that's a confusing question to me. If you are marketing, I see each product or service that you market needs to be marketed with the benefits that that service is going to respond to. If in, and what I'm saying, I hope I'm answering this the way you want me to. In the first call that you make to them to make the appointment, find out, essentially, what is their practice and what product you think is going to be particular to them. So I lead with that product. But you can, for instance, if you're marketing to an elder law attorney is going to be interested if you do conservatorship or guardianship and going to be interested in geriatric care and management. But they might, also have clients who are in assisted living and they may be interested in a concierge companion. I mean, not for themselves, but to pass on to their clients, because that might be, an issue with a client they have should they move their mother, or move management, which is a great product that's in the manual. You may have someone that calls you in to basically, if you have home care, um, to bring in care managed home care, but at some point, from the very beginning, they think they want to move their mother, and so telling them about move management as well as care managed home care would be good. So you just really have to, um, know what possibilities would work with each client. I wouldn't, people have third parties don't have a lot of time. So I would focus on what you know they need first and then add the rest. But you what you do is you have a whole rainbow, they call it a rainbow, of all your sell sheets, and you leave it with them. So they see all your 14 products. But you're going to do the benefits, you're going to do your sale for the ones you think that they're really interested in and would fit with them.
Okay, thank you. Last one, and this is going to be the last one because we're coming up on an hour now. This is from Gladys. She's asking, for those of us that have purchased the earlier version of your manual, how do we obtain the new sections you've added?
If you already have the manual, if it had this question, but I would sell you the newer version for a very, very minimal price, because you already have it. And there's a lot of people that do. Um,
Hmm.
so depending upon, I think there's four versions of the manual. And Gladys, just get in touch with me. I know who you are. Just email me. And it isn't a question that's come up, but I've thought about it. And, I would certainly give you, the latest version for sure.
Yeah, always right. Yeah, if Kathy knows you, always right. Kathy, it is 6 o'clock.
Oh God, turn into a pumpkin.
Oh
The
yeah.
next webinar is going to be an hour and a half because we always run into this. Maybe I can speak more slowly, like I Californian that I am now.
That's right.
Um, so you'll get, like we said, you're going to get you'll get this in about a day. You'll be able to have it in 3 areas. And thank you so much for coming. Thank you for caring enough about your business to learn more. And, really check out, the next webinars. They're always going to be free. And thank you, Keith, for being my forever partner here in doing this. We are coast to coast because I'm in California. He's in
Hmm.
Florida. And thank you all for coming and have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, everyone.